You're going to find their names on Hall of Fames, in history books, in missions organizations, in ministry organizations, in humanitarian organizations, all around the world. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But there are seasons, and sometimes during those seasons, students that are coming in, I think they come in a little bit cynical. They come in a little turned off by what's going on in the world, by what's going on in the church in particular. And they hear the voice of Satan, and he whispers very subtly, and he's very rational, very smart. And he says a lot of things to them. He says, that's okay if you want to work for God, but you really ought to cover all your bases and do this. And in covering your bases, you get completely off track. And you miss what God's could do for you. For a period of time, it was nursing, both male and female. For a period of time, it was to become an undertaker. That's a reputable job. You get to wear a suit, you get to minister to people. I can minister. And I'm going to say some things that are going to make some people upset, but you're going to have to know I'm saying it out of a heart of love. The trend right now seems to be counseling. And God knows we got problems from the chin up, that's for sure. But now it's counseling. Now it's this. And it'll be another trend next. But I want to tell you something. I've got a little rope here. I saw a little illustration. I want to share it with you. Some of you may have seen it. But if this rope represents eternity, the beginning of your life, and then on the unending existence which you will have. And this little red part represents your life. This is your life right here. Can you see the little blue line around the red part? Can you see that part? That's your years of training right here. And the devil has a very, very unique way of making young people just like you look at things in small snapshots, like this is it. This is all there is. And it's so important that I give myself to living within this little red line. This is all that really matters. This is the here. This is the now. I've got to take care of myself. I've got to lay up something for tomorrow. I've got to make sure the bases are covered. I can't run any risk. I don't want to fear failing. So you focus. And this little blue line right here is the short period of time God gives you to prepare. Not just for this. Being a doctor is a noble profession. You're just going to care for a few people somewhere in here. I've even needed an attorney before. I'm not downing attorneys. It would be very helpful if we had some who were Christian. But you'll fill a few legal papers somewhere in here, maybe bury a few folks and help with their estate. But the man or the woman who says, I want to be used of God, your influence isn't going to just stop right here. Do you know that? It's going to go on and 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 on ad infinitum. I hope there are no knots in it. It's just going to keep going. Forever. Forever. There's no end. Your influence is going to keep going. 100 years after you're dead. 1,000 years after you're dead, Larry. Some electronic guru is going to read something out of the revivalist that you wrote and be touched. 1,000 years after you're gone, Brother Troughton, you'll rejoice in heaven with those little people back in some of those little out-of-the-way churches you pastored that nobody else would take, but you took. 1,000 years, they're still going to be praising you forever and ever. But for some reason, the devil has a way of sneaking in and saying, well, that's not what's important. That's not what I want to give myself to. I'm not sure I want to go out there in one of these little silly churches that are just squabbling and fussing and got a half a dozen old women and some half-wit mixed among them. You don't want to give your life to that. You think life is about something more important and bigger. And sometimes you get disillusioned with a local church. And you look right over the local church and you say, well, I'd like to come back and teach at the college. Or I want to. And you just keep looking right over it. And over here. The devil's been very subtle in making a great ministry for you women as mothers and wives. That's fallen on hard times these days. To be a godly mother and a godly wife's fallen on hard times. Well, I need to do this, and I need to take care of myself. Who knows? I may not, and you miss the now and worry about tomorrow, and you end up missing it all. The Lord has sought for himself a man after his own heart. He's not looking for a bunch of brilliant people. Now, I'm not advocating stupidity either. He's not looking for those that are talented and articulate and head and shoulders above the rest. He's looking for a man after his own heart. He said, I sought for a man among them who would make up a wall and stand in the gap before me on behalf of the land. If I could just find a man or a woman that would stand in that gap. Take some of those places. I wouldn't destroy them, but I couldn't find anybody. I've never, in 55 years, dared stand and say this. You can interpret it any way you want to. But I'm going to challenge some of you this morning to follow me. Brothers, sisters, join in imitating me. Keep your eyes on those who walk according to the example you have in us. For you see your calling, brethren, how not many wise men after the flesh. That's me. Not many mighty. That's me. Not many noble. That's me. Are called. I want you to follow me. I dare you to follow me. And I want to take you over my journey just a little bit. Because I want to leave with you something this morning. Only 3% of you have these high IQs, brainy, can do everything. You can walk and chew chewing gum at the same time. You can juggle 3 or 4 balls at the same time. You can sing, play an instrument, speak fluently, keep a 4.0, all of that stuff. But that's only about 3%. But you know what the great average people in this world end up doing? It's the average guy that ends up making a huge difference in life. That's why I'm saying, look at me, follow me. Sometimes you get this wrong impression. But follow me. Before I got saved, I was a rebel without a cause. I wish I could have found some pictures. It's the only pre-conversion picture I could find, except my childhood pictures. I was a rebel, fighting against everything with no cause. But God saved me. March the 17th, 1974. And a little country church. Oh, man, you wouldn't know what. Nobody would go there and pastor. They couldn't get anybody like you. So they got a guy saved at 38. He was a meat cutter. He didn't know theology from a rib steak. But he loved God. He had a heart after God. And he walked into that little country church, and he began to stand in the pulpit with a big old Bible. Couldn't preach. He just went here, went there, but he cried a lot. And I knew one thing. That man loved me. And I used to tell my mother, I don't want him to leave. I want to get saved while he's here, even as a child. And at 17, God saved me. That was right after I was saved. I got a haircut, and that's what I looked like. That's high school graduation. My senior year, I went to a Christian day school. In the summer of between my senior year and fall year, God called me to preach. I didn't even know anything about God's Bible school. I actually went to another college campus. And while I was there to turn in my application, God said, "You're at the wrong spot. You better go." And I called from there back to here and said, "Send me an application." And they did. I don't know if you can see it or not. I don't know if you know who that man is right there. Brother Troughton, do you recognize anybody? That's you. That's in the old library. I'm sitting about where the video room is now, upstairs. That was Brother Troughton. And that's me. I'm registering. I'm signing up for my Bible classes. This was my dorm room over here. See how neat I've got my bed made? GBS days. That was my first picture that was made. That was the first picnic I attended. I'm up to bat. Real slugger, aren't I? John Parker's behind the plate. That was our first date. I looked as goofy as I'll get out. But that was our first date. I never attended a local church all my 4 years here, except for a part of 1 year I taught a Sunday school class after I was married. But all the other times, I was here for ministry. I wasn't here to sit on somebody's pew and listen to a fancy sermon. I was here to do something. And so I found a mission, Freeman Street Mission. It was in the roughest part of town. You can go look for yourself. I was a country boy right out of the woods. I didn't know what marijuana smelled like. I didn't know what red light bulb screwed up in a ceiling meant. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know bars were dangerous. I didn't know about knife fights and people doing strange things. I'd never seen a drunk walking down the street. But I rolled my sleeves up and I went down to Freeman Street. I became one of the co-pastors. That's me sitting on the platform there. Right there, that's Ruth with her little bun back in the days of the bun, you know. We took that old mission, we fixed it up, we put up the sign, we cleaned it up, we put pews in there. We raised money, we bought our own van. I don't even understand asking the school for food or money or anything else. That happens all the time now. We didn't ask anybody for anything. We did it. We just did it. You said you must have had money. No, I brought $500 with me to school, and that was to last me the rest of my career. I had nothing and no one to send me a dime. But we did it. We prayed, we fasted, we made it happen. Engagement. That was our engagement picture. Ruth and I met here. Didn't meet here, but started dating here and got engaged here. That was the wedding. I looked like I had leukemia, but I lived through it. That's the first home I took my wife. Anybody beat that one? 89-room mansion on 1,100-acre estate. Over here was the servants' quarters. That's where we lived. Graduation. Walking through, getting my diploma. Just another face in the crowd. That was my first church. While Ruth was finishing up, I had a chance to pastor. I followed Dr. Joe Brown. He was the academic dean. Great preacher. They offered me the church. I jumped at the chance. I wanted to preach. Do you know what half of you would say right now if somebody offered you a church? You'd say, "Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I could never follow Dr. Joe Brown." I didn't have enough sense to even ask that question or even think about it. You mean a chance to preach? All right, let's go. That's my congregation right there. Wow. That was us. They were Quakers. I was not. But I learned a little bit about being a Quaker. Reverend and Mrs. Avery, the reason I put this picture in here, I made all my mistakes in the middle of a 40-acre field. I didn't know a lot, but I wasn't afraid to blunder and to make a mistake because my heart was in the right place. This was right after graduation. That's a brown suit. It's a silk tie. Very expensive suit, very expensive tie, very expensive shirt. You can't see my shoes, but that's why I put it in here. The first Sunday I wore that to church, I got up and I absolutely went after my congregation wholeheartedly about sacrificial living. I mean, I made them feel bad if they had a rug on the floor. A faithful friend of mine came up to me afterwards, stand up, Andrew, and he said, "Nice suit, Avery. Nice shoes, nice tie. You old hypocrite." I told you that story to tell you this. You'll do a lot of stupid stuff, lots of stupid stuff, but you don't quit. You don't sulk. You don't get your feelings hurt. You learn from your mistakes. Okay? And you move on. You just keep going. Then it was to Selma, my first church. Guess who I followed here? Jim Keaton. James Keaton was pastoring there. That's when all of his children went home, all 9 of them. Kimberly Collingsworth was the pianist. Sister Keaton was on the organ. And all the other little Keatons were singing in a choir and playing instruments and guitars, and he was preaching like a bishop. He left after 8 months, and they brought me in there. Right out of school. Green. Never had pastored. Couldn't play any kind of instrument. Didn't know how to, I couldn't preach like him if I'd have tried in a million years. But guess what? God called me to preach. God opened that door. And I was going to do it or die. And guess what? I didn't die. I went in there. I started, there he is. Look at that. Pretentiously mature. You can read the insecurity all over me. Afraid to go to the study in the morning without a tie. Oh, how stupid. But I was there, learning, slugging it out, going after it with all my heart. The place had literally grown up over the years. Nobody had cared for it. Shrubbery was higher than my head. Windows, dozens of windows broken out. The front lawn of the church washed away. The signs broke. Gravel parking lot. Well, I couldn't preach like a bishop, but you know what I could do? I could work. And I got in there and single-handedly, Ruth and I got to it. We transformed that place until the community began to talk about it. First Vacation Bible School. That was a story that happened 3 months, maybe 3 months after I'd been there. I almost ruined my ministry in the whole conference. I'll tell you that story sometime. I didn't know. I forgot where I was. I forgot I was in Selma, Alabama. I was colorblind. And I started inviting everybody to church. And the roof blew off that church. What did you do? Go crawl in a hole and cry? Oh, I cried. I wept. But I stayed with it. The next Bible school, you'll see Sonia in there somewhere. I don't know. She's down here, one of the little ones on the front row somewhere. This was our first bus. I love that old bus. 2-tone green stripes. Man, it was great. That was our first Sunday. See those kids? Then I started on the youth group. We took young people we took them to the Smoky Mountains. We took them to, we look like the Mennonites down at the coast. Look at there. There we are on the Gulf of Mexico. Man, I took them everywhere. That was a home Bible study. That was a baptism. People started getting saved. That was my ordination. That was my first graduates while I was there. When I went there, the attendance was in the 40s. We'd almost doubled by that time. Couldn't do much, but God saw my heart. Little Eric, when you get out on the front line in the local church, down there, it's not all that glamorous, but you'll run into little Erics. Eric was 6 years old, had serious heart complications. They had to do an open heart surgery. He died on the operating table. I was there. I was there to put my arms around that broken-hearted mother and father. I was there to speak the last words over his little body and to walk to the cemetery with them. They have never forgotten me and the work and the ministry to this day. I wanted to do something bigger than we were doing. When I came there, they were not even giving $1,000 a year to missions. Within 10 years, we were giving over half of our budget to missions. We had given about $25,000. We bought this van that was needed for Mexico. They always need vans. We bought this van. We were giving that van, presenting it to the missionary secretary who's right here. Guess who this is? Sharana, are you here? There's your daddy. There's Teresa Cravens. There's Betts. There's Pottinger, Quails, and Rick Neville. When you leave here, don't forget your alma mater. I didn't. I came back in 1982 for the fall revival. You can tell by the way I held my Bible, I was scared to death. Trying to be somebody. First camp meeting. Raising my family there at Selma. I got involved in the camp and the conference. I was on. There's the youth officers. That's me standing on there, the pair of overalls, working on an old building. If you work in a campground, they'll always be working on old buildings. A lot of experience for coming here. And then this is a cabin Ruth and I built. We wanted to be a part of our conference. We wanted a little cabin, and so I tore down an old house, hauled that stuff 100 miles on an old trailer and truck, and built that old cabin. I had some heroes too. This was the first time I spoke at Hope Sound Camp. That's H.E. Schmuel and William Gale. They were my heroes. And while I had a few heroes, I wanted to be a hero. And so I stayed close to my boys, reading to them, playing ball. And then it was on to missions. After 10 years of pastoring, they asked me to step into Brother Gale's place in missions. I followed the Lord. It was an unbelievable time. I had nothing. I didn't have any money saved up. And they offered me this job as missionary secretary. They're going to give me $600 a month. That was my salary. Provide my own car, my own transportation, my own everything, my own home, everything. $600 a month. I didn't know what in the world to do. Remember that little cabin that I built? Very hard. Somebody wanted to buy it. A couple of friends in Alabama came to me one night after camp and said, you know what? We feel like we need to give you, I think they gave me $5,000. $10,000. I was on my way. It cost me $14,000. I had to get permission from the campground to park it there. I'll never forget the meeting. Young, inexperienced, stretching, nowhere to go. And they looked at me and said this, well, we'll let you put it here, but we want you to know we don't want our campground looking like a riverside fish camp somewhere. Now, you'd have to know the campground to understand the irony of that statement. Boy, that hurt. Here I was trying to do something for God, and the very people around me. Guess what? We got it. We parked it. We landscaped it. We put sidewalks. We planted trees. It looked better than any other place on the campground when we were done with it. My office was in the back of the tabernacle. It looked like a barn. I had no vehicle. All we had was a car. We started praying for a van. That's an amazing story. 3 people laid money in my hands, enough to buy this van so we could travel for missions. I didn't leave my family behind. They were a young family. My boys, during those years, traveled into almost every state in America: Hawaii, Alaska, and the Philippines. Here we are standing in the Philippines for the rice terraces. That was my little office. That's the first one I tell you about, looked like a barn. But I started raising money, started pushing. Story of my life. The story of my life has been just put one foot in front of the other and push. Can you do that? Can you do that, Andrew? Can you put one foot in front of the other and just push? You can succeed. Can you do it? Can you? Can you? Then you can succeed. You can go anywhere and succeed. I just kept pushing. Built a new office for missions, got it out of the trunk of my car. The boys, it was a life of Riley there on the campground. They're puppy hunting, camping out, shooting possums and coons. It was a life, man. You couldn't have asked for anything better. Then in 95, it was here. 16 years later, that's who you see today, and his proud granddaughter. Now, why did I show you all of that? I showed you all of that. I took you on that little journey. I left out huge chunks, huge chunks. I left out some insurmountable problems and heartaches along the way. But I'm telling you this, just an average guy who says yes to God and means it, who gives God all there is to give, and just stays in there, stays in there, stays in there, stays in there. It's amazing what God can do. It's amazing what He can do. And I look out across this group. Do you know how many empty churches sit right now in our movement? It's pitiful. Almost every conference has a half a dozen churches just sitting empty. And so many of you, instead of worrying about all of this, well, will I be able to drive a nice car? I didn't have a nice car. I didn't have insurance when Jonathan was born. I got a job, worked 30 days building a house to make enough money to pay him, and I went right back. I was full-time ministry all the time. No, we didn't eat out every Friday night. We didn't drive the nicest cars. I wore cheap suits. But guess what? It was the most wonderful experience in the world. And if I had it to do over, I'd do it over all over again. If I could swap places with you guys, I'd just start and do it all over again. I'm not sure. I don't know what I'd change. I hope I'd be a little wiser, but I doubt it. But I'd do it again. You're focused on this. I had a graduate come to my office this week. Older guy. He has unbelievable talent. God's given him a ministry in his home country like you wouldn't believe. It would be the envy of anything over here, far bigger than anything we've got around here. He'd be in the mega church league if he was in America. But he came to America. His family's in America, getting education. And I've watched him listen. I've watched him, I want to have a lot of, he's heard me say it. I'd say put a lot of tools in your tool chest. You've heard me say that. I didn't mean put a lot of tools in your tool chest so you could go do something else. And so he got into counseling. And his wife got into nursing. He was just in my office this week. And he said to me about his little counseling job. He drives. He sits in a little cubicle about 6 by 6. He has 4 or 5 people he counsels. And I looked at him and I said, you're a preacher, a gifted one. And it put a spark back in him. He said, you're right, Brother Avery. He said, there's no joy in the world like standing behind that pulpit and preaching. He said, I don't care if they paid me $100,000 a year to go sit in a 12 by 12 counseling room and talk to 4 or 5 people. He said, I'd rather preach for nothing. And I said, then you better get at it. You better not lose your focus. You better get back on track. God's got a great work for you there in your home country. Students, I don't know if but I'm hoping some of you heard me. And that's the ones I'm interested in. I know there's chaff, and the chaff blows away. I know that. But I also know there's some people here that are unbelievably skilled and talented far more than I ever was or could be. But I stayed with it. And that makes all the difference. God's not looking for smart people, for glamorous people, for talented people. He's looking for people who are willing to get on the line and say, I'll live for out here. That's what I'll do. I'll live for out here. Not that little red dot. While you're praying, I want you to listen to something. The church I attend right here in Cincinnati, my church right here in town, hasn't had a pastor for a year. With all I have to do, I've been trying to fill in and help. Tim Keep, who's busy, has been doing the same. 3 of us have tried to keep. We've worked hard. And we've already been turned down twice for this coming year. I thought, where's the Mike Averys that aren't afraid to just, okay, I'll go. No, I'm not like those other guys. I'm not a Dr. Brown. I'm not a James Keaton. I'm not that. But guess what? I am what I am, and I will give it all my heart. All my heart. And I'll learn. I'll be a quick study. I'll try. You pray for me. I'll try. I'll work at it. I'll pray. I'll preach. And God will bless, and God will get new people saved. And God will change the course. I still get phone calls. I get phone calls from people who are grown now. They have children of their own. And they say, Brother Avery, thank you for picking me up on that bus in Selma. Thank you for walking through this tragedy with us. Thank you. I made a difference. Not for that little red line, but for eternity. Could it have been done better? Absolutely. Could somebody else had more flag? Absolutely. But guess what? There wasn't anybody else. But there was a me. There was a Dick Miles. Students, whatever you do here at the altar this morning, stop making excuses.
Stop the excuse stuff. Stop telling God you can't do it. Stop telling God you're not smart enough, good enough, capable enough. Just stop that stuff. He already knows that. He knows that stuff. Just stop it. Neither am I saying ignore learning. I didn't ignore. I studied hard. I learned everything I could get my hands on. I read every book I could get a hold of. I've studied and read and stretched all my entire ministry. The entire time. Stretching. It's not for the weak, the faint, or the lazy. But it is for the willing. And that's what I'm fishing for. Who's willing? Who's willing to stop looking down the road at the little red line of money and wealth and all of that junk and say, God, just use me. Just take me. Just take me. Show me where to go. I'll take one of those little 12 by 12 churches somewhere with a half a dozen people that are discouraged and the weeds have gone up through the sidewalk and every faucet in the parsonage leaks, holes in the carpet big enough to drop a basketball. I'll go. And we'll start, and we'll make it better, and we'll win a community for God. Father, I thank you for our students. I thank you for the unbelievable potential lies in their lives. I stand amazed sometime when I look at them and see what they can do. They're so talented. They're so capable. They know so much. The advantages in education are so far superior for them today. Tools are at their disposal. Every gadget and gimmick there is, it's in their hands. And yet, while they're the most talented group of young people that have probably ever been alive in the conservative holiness movement, they may well be some of the most fearful, worried about the tomorrow, worried about what they want to give themselves to, worried about whether they can buy in or not, worried about, Lord, get their eyes off that stuff and get their eyes on your kingdom. Get their eyes on your kingdom. And in getting their eyes on your kingdom, you can lead them to places where they'll fit, where they'll minister, where they can be effective. They may not do very much the first time around. I didn't do much at Mount Airy, but I was a good placekeeper. But Lord, I was able to make a difference at the next place. And a difference at the next place and the next place. Oh God, help them to say an unconditional yes to you and to whatever you have for them in their lives. May this not be the emotion of a moment, but may it be one of those crucial, pivotal moments in their life when they in fact alter a way of thinking, alter their course, and say, by God's grace, I'm going to make a difference for his kingdom. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. I want you to stand with me. Nick, can we sing? Do you have something? I want us to sing. I guess we're all dated, my generation. We sang about following. I don't know what I don't know what course
Is there a course your generation connects with the best when it talks about commitment? Is there one? All right. It's timeless. Where he leads me, I will follow.
We're glad you joined us. God's Bible School and College prepares students for lives of ministry wherever God calls them. This content is possible because of the generous support of friends like you. To support GBSC, visit giving.gbs.edu. Thank you.